All right, hello everyone. Hopefully, from the background, you can tell that this is again uh, one of my more casual videos. This one I wasn't gonna do, but I mean, every day that passed, I just felt more and more compelled to do this. So this is just gonna be a run through of oh, happy Black History Month. This is going to be a run through of a lot of black books from a bunch of different genres and stuff, varying levels of ease to get into, of interest. And I'm hoping that anyone that's like trying to get into some black literature, this just gives you some help. A lot of the people that watch this probably know me, so if you want some help finding the book, hit me up. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is just kind of a pop up. But we'll go from like easy to hard, and we'll just hop in. This book I still have to do the report for, but it is a YA horror book. If you're looking for something like that, it has good conversations around systematic racism, interesting characters, intriguing mystery around this blood river and exactly everything that's wrapped up in it, which even I still don't know the full scope of it because I have not read the second book. But if you're looking for just like some good old YA with a main character that is a little more anti-hero than hero, then this one's a pretty cool book to get into. Kind of staying on that vibe, we got Immortal Dark. All right, this one is pretty YA for me, I'll be honest. But if you're just looking for some vampires, some weirdly sexual scenes, secret society shit, main character that is brash and always getting in the middle of some shit. It's a very fun story, and the plot actually ended up catching my attention way more than I thought it would. So I had a pretty good time. But it's pretty Stephanie Myers, you know. But yes, there's that. Legendborn. Everything that I've done is YA so far, and I'll let you know when that changes. But Legendborn is another YA. I think it's really cool, the conversation this book has around ancestors and how the past is very present and the importance of looking at the past and in understanding what is occurring around you. It is this black girl who is caught in a love triangle with these two white dudes, one who's a bad boy and one who is like the definition of privilege, and he ends up pissing me off by the end of the book. So I hear that like there's a lot of him in the next one, and so I haven't been the most eager to jump into it. But hey, it was a good book, and I do have faith in the second one. I just don't feel like doing it right now. But this book I will advocate for forever, even though every year that passes a little more erases from my brain. The conversation that this book holds around the different types of relationships that are possible, platonically and romantically, the importance of maintaining relationships, of breaking generational curses, of confronting your past. There are just so many beautiful things that are in this book, and it's a duology. And if you want a book that has deep character work, really captivating plot, and I gave this book a 5 star when I was done. I loved it. We leapfrog this one a bit more with all the other books because this is actually a middle grade book. It is from the Rick Riordan Presents series, and it's by Kwame Mbalia. But it is so cool. It's really good if you're kind of trying to find something even more easy to get into than the things that I've been mentioning. This is a great one, and it has such positive images of black masculinity, messages about working through grief in healthy ways, messages that extend into the conversations around generational grief, because it talks about the transatlantic slave trade and how present that past is as well. But it features African American folk heroes like High John and characters like Gum Baby, and it uses folklore for the purpose of examining society, which has always been the true goal. So I love this, and I will eventually finish the series. I own the other books, I just have not read them yet. I have discussed these before, I'm sure you know, but this is the Ember and the Ashes series by Saba Tahir, and it is such a banger, man. It's so good, and the entire series has such a beautiful tale around, as corny as it sounds, the healing power of love, and also the double sided nature of it, and the importance of confronting the past and addressing the wounds of the past, lest they worsen into something that becomes cataclysmic, you know. And the way she writes the series, it's such a beautiful tale, and it has the same YA heart-throbbing moments, such beautiful imagery, such a strong main character, inspirational, and such a great cast of characters and all their dynamic relationships with each other, their personal conflicts. It all hits so well. I love this whole series with my entire being, and so highly recommend. It is also a YA series. All right, now we are going to get into the adult fantasy, and the first one I'm going to actually talk about is one that I just started reading. It is called Death of the Author. It just came out. It's by Nnedi Okorafor. I hope I'm saying that name right. And this is my first book that I'm reading of hers, even though I should have read many of hers by now. She has kept coming up, and she's one of those where it's just like, I just kept putting it off. And this one is finally one where I was like, I'm gonna focus. I'm only like 30 pages in, and I'm immediately already hooked. It is a metafiction novel, so it's like a book within a book, which with the cover, they do really cool, because that's, I believe that's the main character that is writing this book. But if you take the jacket off, bam, you actually see the cover of the book that the author within the book is writing. And I don't want to get ahead of myself and try and predict what this book is about, but all I will say so far is that it has so much heart. It does such a good job of examining cultural norms, and the limitations that we put ourselves through. And I'm just very excited to see where this goes. And so, high recommend, even with only 30 pages in. All right. Still one of my favorite books that I read last year, and it's in contender for one of my favorite romances that I've read in like the past 6 months. It's absolutely incredible. Main character, incredible. It has a lot of romanticy vibes to it. It has a lot of political intrigue and shit. But where a lot of other romanticides, I feel like, build up these strong main characters and then undercut them with some classic, just standard patriarchal approach to the resolve of these conflicts, which it's usually just the woman capitulating or getting used to something. And in this one, it just takes it so much deeper. It has conversations around death, and transformation, and the main character is one of the most captivating main characters that I've read in a while. Like very, very realistic. She's like 15 when the novel kicks off, but the way she matures, the way she grows into herself, the decisions she makes, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful novel. There's love, but it's also tragic as well. And it's gorgeous, and I can't recommend it enough. Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I read this book back in like 2020, and so this is another one of those where as the years yawn by, I forget more and more, but I remember just being struck by how detailed his world was, how unique his character was, or all his characters were, all these different cities that became structures to talk about a lot of deeper societal issues. A main character that whose identity connected to a lot of different spheres of society, and through that had a lot of conversations about the realities of social outcast, of being ostracized, and what that annexes your identity as, and the different aspects of your identity that can result in that for you. I think it's just a really, really great fantasy tale, great coming of age story. And to keep somewhat on that theme, we've got The City We Became right here. I read this book last year as well. It is definitely one of the more, it's definitely getting into the more like complicated reading experiences, unorthodox sentence structures, um, work with perspective, and imagery that is pretty uncomfortable if you don't read a lot or deal with like magical realism and stuff. Um, but it is a beautiful novel. It has such a detailed description of the characters that talk about the different aspects of their identity. It connects it to New York, where it's set, and the way that the author N.K. Jemisin characterizes the city. It's so detailed and so authentic and so real, you know. And it is also um, a very intricate novel that toes the line between magical realism and just like a literary fiction book. But I had a great time reading it, and so I highly recommend it. And to keep with N.K. Jemisin, we've got her fifth season, her Broken Earth trilogy. The first book is fifth season. I don't have it right now because I loaned it to my grandma and she doesn't know where it is. And I asked her where it was, and she said, "I don't think you gave it to me." And my grandma's right, because she's right. So wherever that copy is, it is not, it's above me now. But the entire series is incredible. It's a dystopia. It touches on themes of environmentalism, of identity politics, and it talks a lot about the way that the process of othering a a person can make them available for exploitation and profit. And it does that in many different ways, but it is also centered around this very touching story between, I mean, of a mom searching for her daughter across a tumultuous wasteland that is constantly trying to kill everyone that is traversing upon it. And it is an incredible novel. Also, again, very unorthodox writing structure, but it's such beautiful prose, such beautiful, beautiful prose. Great dystopia, great fantasy book series. Master of Jin. If you are looking for a absolutely heart pumping like adventure, it's a historical fiction, steampunk, alternative history, set in Egypt with a main character that is a queer female detective that be wearing suits and shit, and solving supernatural crimes between like angels and jinn, and bro, it's absolutely incredible. P. Jelly Clark is such a great fantasy writer and has so many great ideas. If you are looking to lose yourself in a world, this is such a great choice. I will warn you though, it has no sequel as of right now, and I'm terrified this man won't put it out, because he's notorious for putting out novellas, which is actually the next one that I'm going to recommend is The Black God's Drums. It is a novella by the same author. It's about Haitian sky pirates. I have not read it. It is on my list to read. But if you want like a much quicker version of like high black fantasy, it is a novella literally. So whenever you get a second, you can just sit down and knock it out. I can advocate for this book because I've read a different one of his novellas, which is Ring Shout, which again was absolutely incredible. It is about these African American freedom fighters that are fighting against these evil manifestations of racism that are attacking them spiritually. Such an incredible book. Um, Great conversations about the way that ideas can be monstrous themselves and the harm that they can cause and the magic within them. And also just such a great cast of characters. And it ended way too soon. I felt so close with all the characters, and I just wanted more. And I'm like, P. Jelly Clark, you need to start cranking out these books. But there's another novella for you. Also, I don't have it on me, but I've recommended it before. It's a Green Lantern graphic novel that is currently out called Far Sector, written also by N.K. Jemisin. And it is about this black woman who used to be a cop and used to be in the military and everything back here. And she became so disillusioned because everything she was doing still wasn't helping with a lot of the systemic problems that she grew up in. And she wanted to see change. And now she is a member of the Lantern Corps. And so she's seeking to try and enact this justice on a different planet, and they have their own dynamics. But the societal issues on this other planet are very intricate, but they allowed for a lot of cool discussions around revolution and identity, and it carries such a authentic black soul within it. Quotes by James Baldwin, Chinua Achebe, that are intertwined with a lot of the meanings of the chapters. It's just really, really good. But that's enough about a book that's not even in my hands. All right, we're almost out of the fiction books, which it will be the majority because I have not really been a nonfiction reader until recently. But we've got a lineup of Octavia Butler. We've got the Pattern Master series. Wild Seed is the first book, and it is the book that got me into Octavia Butler. She is an incredible writer. She has ways of making you look at humanity differently, making you look at ideas that are like surround you in different ways that make you reconstruct your view of reality. The scale of which she's able to accomplish in such a straightforward and clear prose that's also so poignant and straight to the point. Like her writing is a gut punch. But this series is so high fantasy too. Maybe not high fantasy, but it has supernatural beings. As the series gets on, it gets into some alien shit, sci-fi shit. It's just an incredible series. I just will warn you that you should definitely read these books, but they will never be completed. The fourth book, Pattern Master, leaves on a huge cliffhanger. You can tell that the whole series was building to something incredible. So you maybe want to read the first three and just stop. Maybe read the fourth if you're curious, but incredible books, and I recommend them all. I will move on to Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. These books are kind of like my personal Bible, low key. As you can see, there are a whole bunch of tabs in it. It was the subject of my senior thesis, and it's just such an incredible look at humanity from various perspectives. Um, I'm sure that maybe you've seen that it's had a huge resurgence right now because so much of what she talks about is literally occurring right in front of us. And the funny thing is, this book had a resurgence back in 2020 or like 2021 because I worked at a bookstore back then. And again, everyone was like, hey, it's all happening again. And the thing is, the world moves in cycles, and Octavia Butler has said that she's just observing issues within the world and seeing where they'll lead. And the thing is that these problems unsolved keep reoccurring. But it takes such a brave stance on so many perspectives, including the healing nature of empathy, um, how it bolsters community and how crucial that is for humans. It talks about so much. It just talks about incredibly so much. And I think that if there's one book that I think you should read, if you're prepared for something a little more than just a romp in a fantasy land, and you don't necessarily want to go to nonfiction, this is the book, Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. It's heavy, but it's great. Literally yesterday, I finished Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. It's a really great book because it puts a lot of issues, a lot of social issues in a global and intersectional context. It talks a lot about the conflict in Palestine, and it brings that into a much more global and present context. It connects it to the prison industrial complex. It connects it to immigration policy. It just brings a pretty clear picture of all the intertwined systems of oppression, you know. And so I think it's a really really good book if you are kind of just looking for someone to structure the chaos of the world a little bit. I won't say that it goes very deep into a lot of these things, even though they do touch on some deeper subjects, but it gives you a good direction to look to get deeper into all of these things and gives you a very good overall picture. So really, really great book, really quick book, very small, but a lot of great stuff in here. If you are around me, you're probably, or if you've watched these videos, you're tired of me hearing me talk about this, but The Will to Change, Bell Hooks, incredible, incredible, incredible. I think it's necessary, so necessary today. I encourage women to read it, men to read it, trans people to read it, anybody to read it. I think that kind of how freedom is a constant struggle brings up intersectionality. Will to Change puts patriarchy, feminism in a much more intersectional perspective, breaks it down onto a more humanistic level that you are able to see all the elements that go into the maintenance of patriarchy and what that patriarchy feeds and the cycles that it reproduces within men and women, you know. And so I think this is just a really really beautiful book, and it's written with so much love, and I can't recommend it enough. Adrienne Maree Brown's Emergent Strategy. This book is kind of built upon some of the ideas of Parable of the Sower around community building, and it tries to create like a kind of guide or game plan or mindset for approaching the world in this way. And I think that it's a really interesting book. It has a lot of great ideas in it. I've slowly been making my way through it over the years. Really solid book on community building, grassroots organizing, and a lot of the things to be aware of as you approach something like that. This one is one that I only recommend you to read if you want a challenge. You know, this one is not a book that you can just jump into. So if you are not used to reading, then I definitely would not say pick this up because you will quit, I promise you. Or maybe you won't, maybe you'll work through it for a long time, but I don't recommend. I recommend maybe starting somewhere and then going here. I started somewhere before I went here, and I'm glad I did. But what I will say is, this book does a really, really good job of talking about the trans history of Black people, but really that being a conversation around sex, gender, and how that applies to Black bodies currently, historically, and how the two relate to each other, and how that even affects the conceptions of non-Black bodies, because they're built to reflect messages in relation to each other. And so this book just does a really really good job of showing the intersectionality of trans issues, especially as they pertain to Black people, but really to really so many different areas of life, and again, including the prison industrial complex, including capitalism, including gender restrictive legislature, all that. It talks about all of it, and so really really good book if you feel you're up to it. This is one that I have not quite read yet, but it is high on my list. James Baldwin is just such an incredible writer, such an incredible thinker. The way he saw the world is always something that that has a way of connecting. I've interacted with a lot of his essays and stuff, but I've never read a full like autobiographical account of his life or anything. And so The Fire Next Time is one that I am quite eager to read, and I'm most likely going to read it during this month, but maybe or maybe not, we'll see. And we shall end it all off with Black Liturgies, which I mentioned before. Um, I think that this is such a good book for people that are looking for some words of reinforcement right now. I think it has such a good approach to spirituality. It's really a book that has poems, it has prayers, it has wishes, it has meditations, and they're all centered around like black traditions of maintaining the soul and connecting to spirituality. And I think that it's so accessible. Some of it is born out of Christian faith, but it's not tied necessarily to any denomination, and it's more a meditation on the necessity that spirituality is for the soul. And so, anyone that is looking for like a little bit of reinforcement, a little bit of clarity, some touching words, or something to remind yourself of your own humanity, I highly recommend this book. I just kind of flip through it when I want to. It has different subjects that it covers, like doubt, affirmation, this, that, love. And so it kind of covers a lot of areas of life. And so with that, those are just going to be some hopefully helpful potential books to read during the Black History Month. I've had a real blast reading these Black books just overall, but I'm vibing this Black History Month. I'm feeling the ancestors, and so I want to share the love. But I'm gonna call it off now. Also, just before I sign off, since if you are here, then you just want to hear me yap. I just finished seeing One of Them Days, the Keke Palmer SZA movie. Absolutely incredible. It's been a while since I've gone to a comedy movie and laughed. So much love for Black culture, so much talking about a lot of societal issues within ghettos. It's such a positive look at Black life despite the challenges, and just a feel-good movie. I thought it was great, and so I will sign off with that. Ashe.